All right, step one, we're gonna do the oil pump tensioner. So you come in 2 1/4, like that. There we go, and I've got it squared up at the top, and then you come down 3 3/16. It's hard to kind of do both at once, but that's the mark. And then I can actually drill straight through the block. It'll come out right down there. And then that's where bolt number 1 will go. All right, then you can see I've got my second dot there. It is 2 5/8. So 2 5/8. And then it's 4 3/8. Right there. And then that one is actually for the spring, which you guys will see here in a second. I'm gonna center punch both of these, drill them out to the correct size, and then I will go grab the stuff to put it on and I'll show you. Got my center punch and a hammer. So we're gonna come down here and put this right on those dots. Right there. And give it a little smack. There we go, that's 1. There's 2. So now I'll grab my drill bit. So this one will actually mount this tensioner. This one down here will mount the spring. Looking here, these are what the shoulder bolts look like. Hi, Piper. Here's the tensioner. So it's gonna go just like this. And then the spring is gonna be stuck by that other bolt. These bolts are M6x1. So I have the correct tap for that, M6x1. However, the drill bit, you're supposed to use a 5mm drill bit. I don't have one, so I'm using a 3/16 because it's just barely smaller. So I'm gonna go ahead and drill this, and then we should be able to tap the holes and then thread the bolts in. There we go, perfect. Got a hole straight through the block. Okay, both of the holes are drilled. I'm just gonna blow them out with some compressed air, and then we'll jump into actually tapping them. Okay, so I got both of those tapped. Now I should be able to take these 2 shoulder bolts and the tensioner, and it'll go in right like this. So I'm gonna pop a bolt through. And then this one, you actually bring the spring behind, and you'll thread this one in, just like that. And that way, when the actual oil pump is sitting right here, and you have your chain that runs down to the actual crank, it'll come back up, and this will get sprung just like that. So it'll keep the slack out of the chain, keep the chain nice and tight. Okay, next step that we're gonna do is actually the ring gap for the pistons. I'm shooting for around 15/1000 of an inch. I'm gonna show you guys how I'm doing the piston rings real quick. So essentially, I took a shop towel, put some ATF on it so I could clean the rings before they go in, ran the rings through them. So that's all done. I've done 5 of the 6 pistons, so this is the last one. So got our piston right here, no rings on it. First step is I'm gonna take the spring ring, I don't know what to call it, but taking that and I'm putting it on so that the actual opening of it is right where the wrist pin is. Got it in there, opening to what I'm calling the top, where the wrist pin is. We're taking one of these black rings. They surround that on either side. So I'm turning each of them 90 degrees away from the spring. So one is going 90 degrees towards that side, and one is going 90 degrees towards that side. So you can see it right there, where the opening is. So that's one. Now I'm gonna flip the piston over 180 degrees, snag the other ring. There we go. And then you can see that one right there. So I've got that. Then you go 90 degrees and you've got the spring, which you can't see now because it's in there, being held in with by the other 2. You go another 90 degrees and you've got that one right there. You might be able to see that gap. Next step, it's this guy. I don't know how well you'll be able to see, but it's got kind of a lip on it. You can see it right there. One side of it sticks out further than the other. The skinnier side goes on the bottom because that's how it scrapes the oil back down. I'm placing this 180 degrees from where I started with the spring ring on the wrist pin. So I'm going to take my spring tool here, grab this, and I want the opening 180 degrees away, just like that. Now I've got that right there. So on the opposite side of the wrist pin from the spring. Now for the last ring, same thing, 180, but now it's going to be on the same side as the spring ring opening, opposite this compression / oil scraper ring. And they're marked. These have a part number 118-32192 and then a little M for Molly. You won't be able to see it, but it's on this side, so that goes up. And keep in mind, I've already cleaned these with ATF. You want to run them through ATF and get them all clean because they've got some debris on them. There we go. So I've got that one there. I've got the next one here. Spring ring is on this side just like this one, and then the two other rings are 90 from all of those. Now we're just installing the bearings. So these guys right here, there's a little notch on one side, and it corresponds to a notch in the actual block. So we're just lining up the notches, and then you just press them in with your thumbs, making sure that they go in straight, and that when you're done, it's actually flush right along where the actual main cap will meet up. You just want to make sure they're all flush all the way down. And then number 6 over here, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Number 6 is actually the thrust bearing, which is these big guys that came in a separate package. So I'm going to open them up. There's a little notch right here. So we're going to take that and actually drop it in the same way as the rest. However, this one is special, and I'm going to show you why. This one actually has these little walls on it, whereas the rest, they end at the end of the actual cradle for the bearing. What this does is this extra clearance or extra thickness here actually fits with the crankshaft and makes it so the crankshaft can't walk forward or backward when it's in the block. Because if it were to move forward and backward, it would cause a lot of tension on the chain up here, as well as it wouldn't work so well with your rear main seal and your flywheel and all that. So these are very important. Whatever kit you buy will have these, so you don't have to worry about that. Just make sure that you put it in number 6 and not any of the others, because this is the one that it goes with. All right, another big shout out to Glenn. He actually gave me this bottle of oil. He claims that you can build an entire engine with this. You don't need any assembly lube. You don't need any grease or anything like that. This will do it all for you. He's a very, very smart guy, and I trust him. So we're going to be using this instead of adding like assembly lube into these bearings. A little bit of oil goes a long way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply it to this shop rag and then just spread it in each of those. So now that all these are lubed up, we're going to actually put the crank in. So here we come with the crank, fully lined up. Now this should spin over nice and smooth. Yep. So I got all the caps in. They're just sitting right on top of the crank. Now we're going to start threading in these guys. The easy way to tell is one side will have the actual part that you put your bit in, and the other side is flat. So obviously flat side's going to go in because we got to be able to torque these. We had a mishap. Pretty big blunder if you ask me. So I'm using the ARP main stud kit, right? All of them torqued 260 just fine except for one. It actually broke some threads. Okay guys, I just picked up my cams. They're all done. In case you guys don't know what I'm doing, I am actually using an M54 B30, so the 3-liter cam out of an E46. And then I'm also, that one's for the intake. And then the exhaust cam I'm using is actually an intake cam out of a non-Vanos M50. So like an early model E36 cam, and then an E46 cam as well. So I'm at an undisclosed location. He doesn't normally do work for anyone, but because I have the hookup with Glenn, oh, I'm gonna hit a deer. Oh, 2 deer. Oh, 3 deer. Oh, 4, 5, 6 deer. Holy crap, look at all these. Look at all of them. Oh my gosh. Anyway, wow, lots of deer. Yeah, I'm out in the boonies right now, but this guy Richard, super cool guy, willing to do the work for me. He's just got the correct setup, and Glenn knew it, so Glenn recommended him to me, and now I've got them back. What you actually have to do to them is on the intake cam, you have to shave off the actual splines on the very end that go into the Vanos unit, because on the later models, I guess the Vanos unit's a little bit deeper, so the splines are a little bit longer. So we just trimmed off 5 millimeters. That's just enough to make it fit in the M52 Vanos. Then also on the exhaust cam, which keep in mind is another intake cam off of a non-Vanos motor. On that one, you have to actually trim the mounting surface for the gears around 2 millimeters. So with both of those done, now the Vanos should fit on, and all the gears will be aligned. And then that way the chain isn't having any extra tension or weird play in it, having to kind of move forward and backward. So I'm super excited about this. I'm gonna go back home and continue the motor build from where the last video left off. I actually just pulled out all of the ARP studs, pieces of garbage for this particular application. Anyway, I got the new studs right here. These are all OEM main studs. We're gonna be putting these in instead because I found out they can hold actually up to 1,000 horsepower is what people are saying. As well as you don't have to get the block line honed, which I didn't know before. So there's a quick tip for you. Only do the ARP main studs if you're gonna get your block line honed. Now I'm going to switch over to the torque wrench, and I'm going to show you that. It's pretty cool. Shout out to my buddy Trey for letting me borrow it. My torque wrench just doesn't do the torque angle. His is an electric one, so it does kind of everything. All right, so here it is. He's got a Quinn torque wrench. It is the electric one, so you can adjust between Newton meters, foot-pounds, torque angle, probably a bunch of other stuff. I haven't really messed around with it yet, but this is going to help us actually torque these down correctly, as well as with a couple of other things later on in the build. All right, I put it on wide angle. Gonna try it out, see how it looks, but got this set to 20 Newton meters right here. That's very important. So we're gonna start by doing all of them in 20. I'm gonna start from the middle, work my way out. Then we'll go through and do the 50 degrees of torque angle, and I'll show that on here as well. So to get started, just do this. All right, so we're gonna take our Wiseco piston ring compressor tool. I'm gonna just set it on top of cylinder 1. I'm gonna take my bottle of oil and just give it a little bit of lubrication before I put it in. That way, if I can't really get to it later, it'll still have some lubrication on it. And then there's a mark on the piston that points to the front. It's a little arrow. So we're just gonna drop this down in. Kind of give the piston ring compressor tool a little wiggle, and the skirt of the piston will eventually fall in. And we'll just press it. Oh, that was easy. Just pressed right in. Voila. So I'm going to do that for the rest of them, and then I will catch up with you guys when I'm done. All right, so now I'm going to put the bearings into the actual connecting rod caps. So I'm just going to start by taking number 1. Take bearing number 1. So that's 1 done. I'm going to do that to the rest, and then we'll jump over to actually putting them on the engine. All right, so as you guys can see, these two cylinders 3 and 4 are already lined up. So I'm actually just going to pop them on first, and then we'll rotate the crank down a little bit, push the other pistons in, and do the same thing. Grab number 3. and our little oil squirter. We're just gonna drop that down in there. So now you can see it right there. Then I've got the connecting rod bolts. So now that number 3 is completely done. I'm gonna move on and do number 4, and then we'll rotate the crank and do 1, 2, 5, and 6. But I'm gonna catch up with you guys after all of those are done. I wanted to clarify real quick, the way you know that these are going on right, you wanna actually check for the little cutouts where you put the bearings in. So you guys can see that right, hopefully right there. But you just want them facing each other, so they'll be like butt up against each other. So this is gonna flip over just like that. The easiest way that I found to actually put these on is, so I rotated the crank to have one upright. So, you know, 5 and 2 are up at the top. Went from the bottom with the mallet, and I just tapped it up until I could grab onto both sides of the connecting rod, and then I could just pull it the rest of the way. So that looks a little bit like this. I'm gonna go down here and just start tapping up. Hopefully you can see that. Then from there I can actually reach down here, and I'm grabbing both sides of the connecting rod and just pulling it up. So you can see it's almost there. There we go. So now it's up at the very top. All right, so I've got it set to 29 foot-pounds. It is going to be a size 12 e-torque bit, so the little star guy. And let's torque these down to 29 foot-pounds. Okay, number 3 is done. I'm gonna do number 4 and then move on through the rest. And after this, we will just continue on with what's next. At a time, start threading them in. Okay, I got the baffle on. I'm probably just gonna end the video here. This will be one big long episode of just doing the bottom end. It's gonna include breaking an ARP stud, getting the new ones, kind of doing the whole shebang. This is gonna be the end of the video, so if you watched this far, really appreciate you. More is coming soon. I'm still working on this all day today, so more videos will be out doing oil pump stuff, doing the head, intake, manifold, all of that. So look out for those. Anyway, it's been real, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Yeah, lately I've been going through it, and I know I'm sounding stupid, but it piles up a lot. Yeah, I just lost my dog, and now my dog is moving off the block. Headed to Atlanta, got a man up, but it's hard. I feel like I've been backwards for him. Back-to-back nights of practice for it. Walking tight ropes without a net, doing backflips and acrobatics.